The film opens by introducing Seymour, a clumsy employee at a flower shop. He isn't alone. He works alongside Audrey, a colleague who is clearly the owner's favorite. The shop owner, Mr. Mushnik, constantly scolds Seymour for his mistakes. Mushnik is already on edge because business has been terrible for months. With no customers in sight, the trio is bored and desperate. Finally, Mushnik decides he has no choice but to close the shop starting the next morning, indefinitely. Just as hope seems lost, Audrey suggests showcasing a strange, unique plant that Seymour found in the back alley. Mushnik is skeptical that such an oddity could save his business, and even Seymour doubts its appeal. But miraculously, within seconds, a customer becomes fascinated by the plant. Suddenly, more visitors flood into the store. Confused but thrilled, Mushnik, Audrey, and Seymour decide not to sell the mysterious plant. Instead, they use it as a magnet to draw customers in to buy other flowers. Proud of his employees' ingenuity, Mushnik invites them both out for dinner to celebrate. However, Audrey politely declines, explaining she already has plans with her boyfriend for their date night. Mushnik looks concerned, noting that Audrey often suffers from her boyfriend's abusive behavior. Sadly, the celebratory dinner is canceled. Mushnik simply instructs Seymour to take extra care of the plant. For Seymour, tending to this strange discovery becomes his only source of entertainment. Yet, a puzzle remains. Despite his diligent watering, fertilizing, and sunbathing, the plant keeps wilting. One day, while working, Seymour pricks his finger on a thorn from another plant. As blood drips from his index finger, something bizarre happens. The mysterious plant suddenly comes alive, moving toward him. It seems to demand food, and the only thing it wants is the blood from Seymour's injured finger. Remarkably, the plant seemed to know exactly which finger was bleeding. With no other option, Seymour reluctantly fed it drops of his blood. As you can imagine, the plant didn't just taste it, it devoured the fresh blood from his finger. Astonishingly, just a few drops caused it to grow several centimeters instantly. As days passed, the plant's rapid growth became a local sensation. Seymour was even invited to a radio station to discuss this botanical phenomenon. However, he kept a dark secret. The plant required constant feeding, and Seymour was its sole source of sustenance. He fed it his blood every hour, unsure of how long he could keep up this dangerous routine. The plant grew as tall as a teenager, drawing enthusiastic crowds to the shop. This success left Mr. Mushnik overwhelmed with customers, yet he remained indifferent to Seymour's immense, unselfish sacrifice. Feeling isolated, Seymour found solace only in confiding in Audrey. He planned to ask her out on a date that evening. Meanwhile, we learn more about Audrey's boyfriend, Oren, a sadistic dentist whose harsh treatment leaves his patients traumatized. That night, just as Seymour prepared for his date with Audrey, Oren unexpectedly showed up at Seymour's residence. Since Seymour had no family in the city, he lived in the back of the flower shop. This encounter allowed Seymour to witness firsthand how Oren mistreated Audrey, confirming Mr. Mushnik's earlier warnings about the abusive relationship. Back in his daily routine, Seymour found no joy except in tending to his strange plant. But just as he was getting ready to rest, the plant suddenly wilted again. To Seymour's shock, the plant spoke. It demanded food. Despite Seymour's attempts to refuse and avoid the request, the plant persisted, forcing him to find it something to eat. At that moment, Seymour felt completely lost. By chance, he spotted Oren forcing Audrey to walk home as a form of punishment. Unable to bear the sight any longer, Seymour's emotions boiled over, and he hatched a plan to kill Oren the following night. Seymour went to Oren's dental clinic, pretending to be a patient. He waited patiently until Oren finished with another client. When it was finally his turn, Oren put on a new gas mask he had recently bought while out with Audrey. The purpose of the mask was unclear, but Seymour saw his opportunity. He intended to shoot Oren, but his courage failed him at the last second. Ironically, the gas mask malfunctioned, causing Oren to suffocate and die on his own. With Oren dead, Seymour dragged the body back to the flower shop. He then moved it to the backyard and began chopping it up to feed the plant. Meanwhile, Mr. Mushnik was returning home from a trip. Since his house was right next to the shop, he heard the sound of Seymour's axe. Curiosity got the better of him, and he peeked into the backyard, witnessing Seymour dismembering a corpse. After finishing his grim task, Seymour fed the remains to the plant, which devoured Orrin's body with terrifying hunger. It was unimaginable that the innocent-looking plant in the front window could change so drastically. The next day, a nervous Seymour watched as two police officers approached Audrey. They were questioning her about Orrin, who had failed to show up for work. Seizing the moment, Seymour pulled Audrey aside for a long conversation. Surprisingly, Audrey confessed that she was relieved Orrin was gone, admitting she could no longer tolerate his abuse. Seeing her vulnerability, Seymour seized the chance to confess his feelings, comforting her with sweet words and charm. After consoling Audrey, Seymour returned to the shop to rest, only to be shocked by Mr. Mushnick waiting for him in the basement. Mushnick had seen everything the night before. He threatened Seymour, demanding he take responsibility for his actions. With Mushnick as a witness, Seymour was forced to consider confessing to the police. However, in a split second, Mr. Mushnick changed his mind. He offered Seymour an alternative deal. Seymour could leave town for a few months, and Mushnick would take care of the plant himself. Tragically, the plant did not welcome its new caretaker. Instead, Mr. Mushnick became its next meal, consumed alive right inside the shop. A few days later, instead of becoming a fugitive, Seymour found himself surrounded by TV crews and magazine reporters. They all wanted interviews with the man behind the mysterious botanical sensation. The plant had grown so large that it now touched the ceiling. However, just as the interviews were about to begin, the plant suddenly wilted again. Confused onlookers began to ask questions. To cover his panic, Seymour ushered everyone out, claiming he needed to administer medicine to the plant. In reality, he was simply terrified, unsure of how to feed the hungry beast amidst the crowd. Watching Audrey, Seymour hatched a new plan. He intended to use the money from the media deals to escape town with her, believing life would be peaceful without the plant. That night, he secretly planned to abandon the wilting, unfed plant. But once again, he felt forced to find it food. In his haste, he decided to buy processed animal meat from a local store. Meanwhile, Audrey noticed the plant moving and staring at her. Curiosity got the better of her, and she entered the flower shop. Inside, she was shocked to hear the plant speak to her. But her surprise was short-lived. The plant suddenly lunged, grabbing her and swallowing her whole. Seymour arrived just in time to see his girlfriend being devoured. Desperate, he fought to pull her out. Although he managed to drag her free, it was too late. Audrey had been poisoned by the plant's toxic saliva and died in his arms. Overwhelmed with grief and stress after losing the only woman he loved, Seymour made a heartbreaking decision. With heavy sorrow, he fed Audrey's body to the plant, making her its final meal. After feeding the plant, Seymour felt completely hopeless. He ran to the roof of the building, intending to end his life. However, he was startled by the sudden appearance of a reporter who had snuck onto the roof. The reporter proudly admitted that during the earlier interview, he had stolen cuttings from the plant. His gamble had paid off. He successfully grew a similar plant at home. Blinded by greed and the promise of wealth, the reporter planned to mass-produce these plants and sell them to the eager public. Little did he know, this decision would spark a catastrophe for humanity. At that very moment, the mother plant grew even larger. Instead of calming down, it began releasing numerous seed pods. Overwhelmed by the sheer number of offspring, Seymour, the plant's original caretaker, was consumed alive by his own creation. As time passed, the reporter's mass-produced plants hit the market. Unaware of the deadly danger, people bought them enthusiastically. Within days, a plague of giant, man-eating plants erupted across the city. Chaos ensued as the vegetation rapidly took over, destroying everything in its path. It was unimaginable. Countless carnivorous plants dominated the city, ignoring place, time, or situation. They threatened every human life, turning the urban landscape into a nightmare of destruction.